Well, hey everybody, welcome back to r/malicious compliance, where people tend to get exactly what they ask for. And if you're new here, I'm Uncle Reddit. Just sit back, relax, and let's read some malicious compliance stories. Natural occurring colors. In the early 2000s, I worked at a Canadian casino. The place had so many ridiculous rules, including some very particular rules about makeup. The makeup rules were as follows: no fake eyelashes, no fake fingernails or fingernail extensions, no makeup that is not a natural color. The natural color one confused me. What is deemed natural? Who decides what is and isn't natural? I asked my manager for clarification, but she couldn't give me any. Just keep it natural, use naturally occurring colors, and you'll be fine. This did not sit well with me. Cue malicious compliance. My aunt has her master's in environmental science. I went to her house one evening and picked her brain about naturally occurring colors. She informed me that, scientifically, natural occurring colors are colors that can be found directly in nature. She even showed me a textbook that directly spoke about naturally occurring colors. I borrowed the textbook and highlighted the paragraphs that specified this. Keep in mind, this was well before you could just Google something. The only way to back up the claim was to carry that 750-page textbook to work with me. My next shift, I went all out. Green eyeliner, eggplant-colored eyeshadow, yellow nail polish on one hand and mango colored on the other hand. I hit the floor to work, and within the first few minutes I get hauled into my manager's office. OP, what do you think you're doing? You can't wear those colors. You know our policy states naturally occurring colors only when it comes to makeup. Head to the staff bathroom immediately and remove it. Wordlessly, I headed to the staff bathroom, but instead of taking the makeup off, I went to my locker, grabbed the textbook, and marched back to my manager's office. Excuse me, manager? I'm wearing naturally occurring colors. Here, look at this textbook that specifically states what naturally occurring are, by definition. I watched her face change as she read the book. First she looked pissed, then worried, then finally resigned herself to what was happening. OP, do you really need to be that type of person? Me, the type that follows the rules? I thought that's what you wanted me to do. She asked me to head back to the floor. For the remaining time I was employed there, I wore whatever color makeup I wanted, and so did almost all of my coworkers. They tried coming out with new rules, but could never get the wording right. F stupid rules. Malicious compliance for the win. I sort of see what they were going for at the casino. Like you said, their wording was kind of screwy. You can go for muted colors or certain tones, things like that. But just to say naturally occurring, I mean, have they looked at macaws and parrots and things like that? I mean, there's a lot of bright colors on those things. And don't you be splitting that tip with her. This is a story of me and my butt buddy. I call Samantha. We both coordinate the drive-thru. Me on the radio, her collecting the money. Our backs are to each other as I make the drinks during the order while she assembles the bag and or collects the money from the customer. We're the faces of the Mendy's drive-thru. We had one customer whose order I took that was having a problem while at the window. The problem was entirely my fault as I didn't completely put in their order before Samantha rung them up. This caused a lot of confusion, and Samantha was very apologetic to the customers, and to me even. This was totally my fault, yet Samantha was getting reamed by these customers for being a stupid, about to lose your job bee. It felt very not from a progressive or accepting place. While they continued to scowl at her, they looked at me and handed me a 50, and said, "Don't you go splitting that tip with her." Enter malicious compliance as I hand the 50 directly to Samantha as they drove away looking. Best and almost indescribable expression ever. She kept pushing to give me 20 at least. No way, you earned this one. Edit. What some haters don't get is how spiteful some customers can be, and how much money they'll spend out of this spite. This occurrence wasn't the first, second, or even third one since the holidays, although 50 was the most I've seen. One of us will mess up royally in the eyes of Joe Schmo, and Joe Schmo will make a grand wave of the hand, overemphasize their speech to hand money to one of us, over-complimenting all the way, making sure the other bad employee sees the good employee getting a tip because they're so good. They'll make eye contact with a bad employee while handing a generous tip to the good one. The funny part is that half our tips are either spite tips or pity tips. They see us struggling and give us money, or they don't like our attitude and give money to our neighbor. It's such a common occurrence that we thought about purposely botching something to get tips. Thought better of it, obviously. To be honest, half the time when I see people getting ticked off at a restaurant, it's either their fault, sometimes it's the employee's fault, But either way, they tend to blow it way out of proportion to begin with. They don't bother to find out what happened. They just won't accept any excuse, any answer, no explanation, nothing. And yeah, they just like, I guess it makes them feel important. Who knows? You want to make things fair? I'll show you fair. A couple weeks ago, my kids and their neighbors decided to have a bake sale. We live in a tourist area with high foot traffic, and the kids make a killing. I tell the kids I ought to charge them for labor. I said I'd help bake, and ingredients so they learn the concept of net gains. But instead, I'll donate to their cause, and just to bring me back the money I lent them to make change. I love seeing the kids be entrepreneurial, work so hard, and get so excited at their success. After a couple hours, the neighbor's son decides he's bored and wants to go home, so he tells my kid, "When you're done, come by and deliver half the money." Mine says, "Hey, that's not fair. If you're leaving, we should split the money now." Mind you, the bulk of their sales was my baking. Neighbor kid gets super ticked, but mine sticks to their guns. They split the money, and the kid leaves in a huff. Mine comes in a few hours later, having lugged home all the gear and cleaned up, annoyed that the neighbor kid got annoyed at them. Then I get a knock on the door. It's the neighbor's mom, with the kid, who is still pouting. Mom's holding a receipt. Mom explains that they purchased a bunch of stuff for the bake sale. It costs a lot of money, and it's not fair that my kid is making money off their stuff, and that they should be compensated for what they purchased. The receipt lists a bunch of items I immediately see they didn't use, like 2 boxes of cereal, when they used 1, napkins that I'd ended up providing. But whatever. And never mind that her son went home early and left mine to clean up, and never mind that I'd been churning out batches of cookies all morning. I'm irked they've taken what was a fun, cheerful day of kids making money hand over fist and showed up at my door making me engage in a super awkward conversation because they assume their kid can't be wrong. So I say, "Of course," and fetch my receipts. I sit down, and in front of them, and out loud, calculate the cost of lemonade and cups used. I calculate the cost of flour, sugar, chocolate chips, vanilla, and butter per batch of cookies, multiplied by the number of batches made. I toss in the baking soda for free. So generous. I even subtract the value of leftover cookies. Did I mention I made a lot of cookies? The neighbor kid has to fork over $23. They got pretty quiet all of a sudden. I thanked the lady for making sure things were fair and offered her a plate of cookies to take home. She declined. Okay, so this mom's just like the customer in the last story. Don't bother to... Wow, this lighting sucks. Don't bother to find out what actually went on and try to get the actual information. Just assume that your kid is right, like you said. You know, a couple well thought out questions can actually, solve most problems. Poke around a little, find out what was going on, what was their thought. Just don't assume. And maybe teach your kid that if he commits to something, he needs to see it through. Customer wanted to be pedantic, can't say that word, about portion control. At my work, we put a certain number of sliced meat on our subs. The customer tried calling me out for shorting her turkey slices, so I proceeded to count the slices of meat. Turns out I was actually over the required amount. I took off the extra slices and apologized for giving her too much meat. I shouldn't have guessed the meat slices, but the meat was tearing as I tried to get the slices apart, so I erred on the cautious side and over-guessed the slices of meat. Shame, the customer would have had extra meat on her sub, but she had to be a Karen. Yeah, it's amazing how many times we hear about customers going into like a sub shop, especially like sub shops where they watch you make the food, or like a Chipotle or something like that. Any place where you're standing there and they ask you what you want on your sandwich or on your platter or whatever. And, people think they're automatically getting cheated. And 9 times out of 10, that employee doesn't care. They're giving you a little bit extra usually, just because they're not trying to be super strict about measuring. And I would never ask for extra. I know there's a corporate standard of how many slices or how much weight or how many scoops or whatever. And if I get a little extra, great. If I didn't want the food and I thought it was too expensive, then I wouldn't go there. That simple. Box up all the leftover boxes? I should note that I was away for this story but heard all about it. My convenience store chain is locally known for its donuts. We get dozens of fresh donuts every morning, and by the end of the night, we're supposed to box up what we have left into half-dozen boxes to be sold for a discount the next day. Some nights we'll still have quite a lot of donuts left over. We've found that when there's 30-plus boxes of these day-old donuts, people seem to buy less of them. So we started capping the amount of boxes made at just 15 and send the rest of the donuts back to the bakery. We recently got a new assistant manager. She's pretty chill as a person, but as a manager she can be pretty by the book and controlling. She had found out that we were only making 15 boxes most nights and insisted we box up all leftover donuts, saying something about it's how they know if they're ordering too many donuts. We write off the donuts every night, so there is a list, and that the company expects to sell them. Well, one day either people weren't buying donuts that day or they had ordered way too many. We had a crazy amount left over that night. My coworker knew the assistant manager would be checking her work and didn't want to get into trouble with our assistant manager, so we boxed them all. We had a total of 61 boxes made. Our store manager opened that morning and was not happy, to say the least. We're allowed to cap it at 15 again. There's something about the psychology of buying, of being a customer. If there are too many choices or the pile is too big, customers tend to buy less of it for some reason, unless there's some crazy super good deal. In my retail business, we manufacture and retail handmade soaps and beard stuff and shave stuff, things like that. Obviously, I don't use the shave stuff much. And I found that, at one point we had over 40 different scents of bath soap to choose from. And I thought that was great, man. I mean, how can you go wrong with more choices, more options? Yet, the more options there were, the less people bought, whether it was in person or on the website. And according to the psychology, and I forget where I read this, it's somewhere, there's a whole psychology of, marketing to people, but it's called decision fatigue or something like that. But basically, people freeze up. There's so many choices they can't make a decision, even if they've already got a few things in their cart. And a lot of times I can snag them, I have an email that automatically goes out that says, hey, come back and finish checking out, I'll give you 10% off. And that'll usually get them to buy a little something, but honestly, I'm better off with 20 to 30 different scents, and even that's a lot. It seems a lot easier for people to make decisions at that point. Decision paralysis, maybe? I don't know. Off track again. But anyway, sometimes people need to be guided when they're making purchases, and offering less selection or smaller piles tends to help with that. Throw it in the bin right now. It was sometime when in the early 90s, Saturday evening, I was about 7. Noel's house party had finished and my dad was watching some rubbish on one of the 4 TV channels that existed at that time in the UK. My brother and I were making and throwing a paper airplane around, much to our dad's annoyance. When he watches the TV, he likes the volume up and no distractions. We were being loud and annoying and generally having fun throwing the paper plane around. Dad says, "Stop throwing that effing thing around and put it in the bin right now." He was really mad. Now I'm mad at having our source of fun taken away. I look him dead in the eye, petulantly throw the paper plane in the general direction of the bin while maintaining eye contact. I see his face start to crumple in anger, but we both turn to watch as it sails beautifully through the air, curving slightly at the end to land perfectly in the small waste paper basket. I swear it happened in slow motion. We all just started hysterically laughing. All signs of anger dissipate as we can't believe it actually went in. For the rest of the night, I catch my dad randomly chuckling and saying, "I can't believe it actually went in." Well, maybe that's a lesson to just kind of chill out a little bit. Take a deep breath. Maybe ask him just to move somewhere else in the house, apartment, flat. If it's nice out and daylight, go outside maybe. But yeah, I'm glad we're in the modern age where I can put on my wireless earbuds and kind of tune everybody out and do my thing. Although back then, we still had the one-piece earbud with, you could get like a 20-foot cord to go from the television set all the way to your ear with that little white wire coming all the way across the floor. And that was in the 70s, so I don't know how long ago this was, but yeah, either way, I guess I'm showing my age. You won't let me on the plane with my bag. Sure. My wife and I have taken a trip to her country of Mexico with my parents and some of her family. We flew to her city in the middle of the country and then to Puerto Vallarta for some time on the beach. All our flights were with Aero Mexico. When you fly with them, they put little wristbands on your roller bag and backpack saying they have been approved to be on the plane and in overhead bags. My roller bag was given a tag approving it for the first 2 legs of our flight to Puerto. However, on the way back, the agent at the gate started saying how my bag was too big and needed to be checked for $200. I showed him the tag from the previous flights, but he kept saying it was too big, even after I placed it into the stand that measures bags and it fit just fine. He kept telling me over and over it was too big. I had to pay. My wife argued with him for several minutes, but he kept saying over and over I was not getting on the plane with the bag. And he was correct in that I didn't get on with it. However, my father and his first-class ticket strolled right onto the plane with no issues, and I took his smaller bag and smiled as I boarded. Okay, I'm a little confused. Even in first class, aren't the bag requirements the same in most airlines? And number 2, why is Daddy flying first class and everybody else gets to ride in whatever class they were riding in? That seems a little weird. You want to review every email? Challenge accepted. Much like a vampire, the national headquarters supervisor over my local office needs to micromanage to survive. He craves it, feeds on it, and this is why he instructed every office that he oversees that he needs to review every email that we write for any task or project we complete. Note, our office completes between 2 to 5 such projects daily. Yep, for real, email reviews. For an office of 3 that has a combined 70 years of experience in our field. So this morning I'm drafting for review on company letterhead in Microsoft Word with track changes turned on a series of Outlook form email templates that I use regularly, 8 in total actually, as well as permission to use said Outlook templates that I've already used for 3 years. I'm also going to notify him that I've followed approved naming conventions for all draft email review documents, conventions that don't currently exist, as well as the names I use in Outlook for my email templates, even though I'm the only one that sees these templates. Note, I think I'm discovering that I crave pettiness the same way he craves micromanagement. Update, it's been 4 hours, not even a reply yet. It's tough. It's tough working for somebody who micromanages, but at the same time I can also see where some managers tend to turn into micromanagers. Although if this manager was working with you guys for a while, he should have been over it. But I've been in some places where a manager's been there for, say, 10 years, and a set of employees just really drives them nuts. They don't follow directions, they're lazy, whatever. And then you have to micromanage people like that, at least until you get replacements. Once the replacements come along, test them out. See if they got half a brain, or if they're willing to follow directions and protocols and things like that. Then you don't have to micromanage them. So I guess I can see it from both sides. Well, hey guys, I hope you liked these stories, and if you did, do me a favor. Would you consider giving this video a thumbs up? Maybe subscribe to the channel, and click that little bell icon so you don't miss the fat guy with the beard telling you stories. See ya!